Well, let's get straight off because we've got a lot in today's news, a lot of very interesting topics. And of course, I hope that our viewers and listeners appreciate the dedication. We're here on a holiday, a public holiday in UK to serve your needs. Alex, it's good to see you. You're looking very relaxed. Tell us where you are and what have you got for us?
Greetings, Brian and Diane and Mark and the viewers from sunny Tbilisi, the capital of the former Soviet Republic of Georgia, a long banana-shaped city in a beautiful location on the river Mtkwari. By far the biggest city in the country. I come here about once a year on average, my former specialist domain. I landed on Saturday, and this is the scene that greeted me at the airport as I was picking my baggage off the carousel. We'll play this silently as I continue to talk. So the carousel shows, or the screens on the carousel show Georgia's pride that all of their sporting teams are doing brilliantly. The first one you saw there was Georgia has qualified for the UEFA Cup for the first time in its history and will be playing Turkey at Dortmund Stadium on the 18th of June. And look at all these excellent sportsmen in the various domains. It all looks very hunky-dory, but Brian, this is a more tense Georgia than I have ever seen, and this is having covered, although not lived here through, but having covered several revolutions and wars in Georgia. I haven't seen society this divided, even this morning. I mean, the usual measure is, of course, the taxi drivers, and the younger ones, the ones that look more Western in their styling, shall we say, have a particular intolerance now towards anything associated with the Georgian Orthodox Church or Christian culture in general, and anything that they don't like, they spit on as being Russian, with a hardness that I didn't see even in the previous revolutionary period, the Rose Revolution of 20 years ago under Mikhail Saakashvili. However, the point of the matter, and I won't show any footage of riots today because everyone's away for Orthodox Easter over this long weekend, so that would not be current, but in a couple of days' time, and certainly by my next appearance next Wednesday, God willing, that I'm afraid there probably will be more gory footage of police laying in with tear gas and water cannons. The issue of contention is a draft bill tabled by the government and put through to Parliament on the requirement to register foreign non-governmental organizations. For short, this is being called the Foreign Agents Registration Bill and is being compared with the Kremlin's already enacted bill of the same name, which went through the Duma. And you will hear in a moment a BBC interview with a member of parliament for the ruling party, the Georgian Dream Party, called Nikolos Samkharadze, where he defends this position and he gets laid into by the BBC. We'll discuss that in a moment. But before this point in the interview, Mr. Samkharadze has laid out fairly even-handedly that Georgia does face massive territorial challenges from Russia occupying Abkhazia and South Ossetia and from the various wars around the periphery between Armenia and Azerbaijan just down the road from here. That's fair enough. And then he gets to the point we'll be listening to now for about a minute and a half, where he explains the necessity of the law. So let's roll that.
We have 25,000 active non-governmental organizations working in Georgia, which is one of the highest per capita index in the world, given the fact that Georgia is 3.7 million, Georgia's population, and that makes almost one NGO per 148 Georgian citizen. And 90% of those non-governmental organizations get their funding from foreign sources. And there is no accountability. There is no transparency of where the funds come from and for what purposes these funds are spent for. Therefore, for us, this is important to ensure the transparency of foreign funding.
But this law would go, if I may interrupt, this law would go even further than Russia's similar law does. For example, the Russian law exempts religious organizations from this act. It doesn't call them foreign agents. The proposal that you are putting forward would classify religious organizations who receive that level of funding from abroad as foreign agents. So why do you feel the need to include, for example, religious groups in this?
Let me be clear. There is no word agent mentioned in the draft legislation.
Now, with the possible exception of that very last sentence, which is disputed by those who've read the text in Georgian closely, that they say there is reference to foreign agents. Georgia doesn't quite have a word for agent, but similar wording. The rest of what Mr. Samkaradze says, I have to say, is fairly unobjectionable in my view. And Samkaradze cannot be pigeonholed as a Russian stooge. True, he belongs to the Georgian Dream ruling party, which is often accused of being a front for the pro-Russian oligarch Bidzina Ivanishvili. But on the other hand, if you look at his career, which will be in the show notes, although I'm told by Kenny, interestingly enough, that Western ISPs block the Georgian Parliament web server, so you can't read the biography. I don't know why. But if you look at his biography, he spent the last 20 years, including during the Saakashvili period, being a pro-Western reformer and advisor on security. And he's an academic on defense policy and security issues, territorial integrity of Georgia, which is such a hot topic here. So you could say that the middle section of Georgian society, perhaps the middle class and the early middle age like him, are thinking this way, but the radicalism starts just a few years below him. Down the road in Armenia, there will be probably more on this as well next week. We'll see that it's behind a paywall, but I'll read a bit in a moment. Intelligence Online is reporting that Yerevan, which is swinging very much towards France, NATO and the West, the capital of Armenia, that government has now hired none other than General Sir Richard Dannatt, the former Chief of Staff of the British Army, what's left of it, who's now taken up with the successor to the defunct and ill-reputed PR firm Bell Pottinger, responsible for many ethnic issues around the world here in the Caucasus and elsewhere. Dannatt apparently is going to be advising the government of Nikol Pashinyan, the Prime Minister of Armenia, on burnishing his image, particularly with reference to the military. And he'll be working alongside another former Cameron advisor at Sanctuary Counsel, the new front for Bell Pottinger, and that will be Andrew Cooper, who's now Baron Cooper of Windrush. Australian spin doctor Linton Crosby, known to our viewers, is also in the mix. And the Times of London reported on the 15th of April that the British and Armenian governments are already discussing turning Armenia into a second Rwanda, making it a pro-Western client government to the extent that it gets British applicants for British asylum dumped there because it's supposedly a low-cost country difficult to get out of. And a final slide from me in this segment, one of our viewers has spotted that this small US Air Force VIP-type plane has been flying from Tbilisi to the Azerbaijani capital of Baku, both pro-NATO and EU countries that may be members of both soon, possibly shuttling State Department diplomats back and forth. By next Wednesday, there'll probably be a lot more to report in regard to both of these things.
Alex, thank you very much. Very interesting report. Sad, though, we've got more angst and stress occurring in Georgia. We've already got enough problems with Ukraine.